And welcome to our platform for today's presentation. The platform is that of Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. And I'm welcoming you on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Olufemi P. Another seminar presentation on this platform, and I believe that you really enjoy is going to do justice to today's presentation. But before I introduce the speaker, this is a Center of Excellence in National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Olufemi Peters. And I told you earlier that I am Professor Gloria Neto. So today's presentation promises to be an interesting one and exciting, and your time is really going to be. So I said the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies was established 5 years ago with a TED fund and under the tenure of Professor Abdallah Abdamu, our immediate past Vice Chancellor. And this center is basically about handling and carrying on migration issues and global studies. And it's the first center of excellence that is being sponsored by TED Fund in Nigeria. And we are very proud to say that since its inception, the center has been growing steadily. And our mandates include to provide leverage for field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as agents of national policy for migration studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series, to collaborate with stakeholders in the field and policymakers, to organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures. And I dare to say, as it's no more occasional seminars, but frequently we organize seminars, we organize workshops and conferences. And so the center is on top of its activities as been explained. So on that note, after telling us briefly about the center, it's now time to introduce the presenter of today. The presenter of today is a young lady who is very, very pleasant and is a very hardworking lady who has decided to set up, surprisingly, her own migration outfits. And she's a youth, surprisingly, but she is somebody that you cannot but notice when she's around, because she has all it takes to be in this our program today. But let me quickly tell you, you've discovered things by yourself as she presents to us with confidence, I must say, and she's up to the game. Her name is no other than Osatohame Mary Igbinosun. She's a lawyer, female youth advocate, and development enthusiast with over 7 years of progressive experience in the migration and development space. Her work focuses on promoting sustainable development and inclusive migration governance, especially through amplifying youth participation in migration discourse and the implementation of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, GCM. Her experience cuts across working with the civil society network on migration and development, CSO-NET, and international organizations. She has led multiple youth-centered initiatives notably the Youth Forum on Migration and Development in Nigeria and the Regional Youth Exchange on Migration Governance in Africa. She had the honor of presenting the outcomes of the Regional Youth Exchange at the first thematic meeting under Nigeria's chairmanship of the Rabat process in Abuja, focused on youth education and innovation driving the future of migration. Osatohame Mary Igbinosun has been engaged by notable organizations such as Action Aid Nigeria, the Nigeria Labour Congress, and others, where she has delivered expert support in various capacities. Her work also extends to activities funded by international development partners, including the Deutsche Gesellschaft for International Zuma GIZ. I'm sorry, I'm breaking my teeth there. International Labour Organization, ILO, Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, SDC, and International Organization for Migration, IOM, providing consultancy, training, facilitation, stakeholder engagement, and policy advisory services in the field of migration and development. With a strong background in stakeholder engagement, she has consistently supported capacity building efforts for both state and non-state actors in the migration field, driven by her commitment to knowledge and impact. She is currently completing a Master of Arts in Migration Studies at the Center for Migration Studies, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and she's also enrolled in the certificate course for secular and return migration at the University for Continuing Education, Krems, Austria. In pursuit of a more inclusive migration governance landscapes, she founded the Migration Moments with May Global Empowerment Initiative. So, like I told you, she has that, to her credit, she's the CEO of that organization, where she serves as executive director and host. Through this not-for-profit platform, she actively raises awareness on migration issues and mentors young people across Nigeria and beyond, offering trainings on migration governance, advocacy, and leadership. Osato Mary Igbinosun continues to use her voice, experience, and platforms to ensure that young people not only contribute to, but also shape migration policies and practices for a better and more equitable future. Today, she will be speaking to us about Our Voice, Our Future, Reimagining Migration Governance in Nigeria with youth at the core. On this note, I welcome Mary Osato to go ahead with her presentation. I also want to draw our attention that our social media handles are on our platform for you to visit our website. Thank you, Ms. Osato, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gloria. And I want to extend my appreciation to the National Open University, the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, for this opportunity to speak to us on this critical topic. Like Prof has introduced me, my name is Osato Mary Igbinosun, and I am the host and executive director of Migration Moments with May Global Empowerment Initiative. Yeah, so Migration Moments with May is a not-for-profit, youth-led, youth-centered, youth-focused NGO aimed at enhancing youth participation in migration governance. It was born out of the fact that my journey began when there was rarely any youth in the room when migration issues were being discussed when I joined 7 years ago. I stayed and I decided to lend a voice to ensure that it would not be only me in the room, And whenever we are in the room, young persons are in the room, we're also able to contribute to these processes. So today I stand not just as an observer, but I stand as a bridge between these policies and frameworks that we have developed and we're implementing and the impact it has in the life of young people and youth. So I'll quickly share my screen now so we can dive straight into the focus of discussion for today. Okay. Right, so please, if at any point you have any question, you can use the chat box just so as not to interrupt the flow because we are working with time just to make sure we round up early. I'm pretty sure we have other engagements we are doing today. So the essence of this discussion, the essence of everything we do in the migration governance space in Nigeria, and I'm sure at the world at large, is to enhance migration governance in Nigeria, in our context as a nation. But today we're also going to be specifically talking about, or we're going to be discussing the highlights and the critical roles of youth in migration governance landscape. We're also going to discuss the existing gaps and that are limiting youth involvement in migration governance. We are also going to motivate stakeholders. You and I can see that I think we have some government persons here. We have the academia here. We also have some youth present. We are going to be motivating ourselves to reimagine Nigeria migration governance with youth at the center of it all. So before we proceed, we would like to understand what it means to be a youth in Nigeria, in ECOWAS, in the world, and as Africans. The United Nations says that youth are persons that fall between the ages of 15 and 24 years. The African Union, under the African Youth Charter, says that these are people within the ages of 15 and 35. ECOWAS says 15 and 38. While Nigeria, with the recent reviewed National Youth Policy, I think it was reviewed in 2019, and I got to know that it's currently being reviewed again, says that youths are persons who fall between the ages of 15 and 29. Why there are age differences? For the United Nations, they got us to understand that states are able to define what they mean by youth and the age grade, and they are not going to interfere with that. But surprisingly, the African Union and ECOWAS, which we align with as Nigeria, says 15 to 35. But Nigeria reviewed in 2019 and said that this age grade is 15 to 29 years. At the time, somebody jokingly said that Nigeria is trying so much to take some of us out of this youth category. But anyway, we'll go to the next slide, which tries to explain what migration governance is. So in simple terms, this definition was gotten from IOM definition. In simple terms, the combined frameworks, everything we do in migration governance, all of the activities you do, all of the frameworks, the legal norms, the laws, regulations, policies, traditions, everything we do to ensure that migration is safe and beneficial for all falls under the definition of migration governance. What the state government does, what National Open University does to try to educate students on migration issues, what I do, what you do in your own little space, all of the relevant processes, activities, contributions fall under the category of what migration governance is. And you would agree with me that youth are really crucial. They are essential in our migration governance space. Youth are the most mobile demographic we have in Nigeria and the world at large. You can check their materials on that online, their findings, their researches that have been done already. Youth move. And youth are people who also drive migration trends. Every migration trend you hear of today, the one you hear of tomorrow, and the ones we have been hearing, when you check, you find out that youth are the ones that are driving these trends. Starting from the fact that issues, sorry, I don't like to start from the negative, so I will not talk about irregular migration first. So starting from the fact that youth are migrating for labor, going to other countries to look for jobs. Another fact is that they go to these countries and they send back remittances. If you check the data, you find that youth are also sending so much back to the country. Also, youth are going abroad for various push factors, whether through the regular means or irregular means, even up to the return and integration, which is also a trend now, a migration dynamic and trend. You find out that the numbers that are coming back home are also youths. I had the opportunity to work in that space for 2 years, and most of the persons I welcomed and I received at the airport were all youths. This goes to say that apart from the fact that we are the major demographic migrating, we are also coming back home in our numbers too. So we define these trends. When we talk about labor migration today, we're talking about youth. When you talk about return migration, you're also talking about the youth. So why youth participation in migration governance matters? So this will just give us like an overview to let us know the current landscape, to know what's happening right now in the country and how best we are managing migration and why it's important for us to talk about youth participation in migration governance. Migration governance has progressively improved over the years, if you ask me. I've been here for like 7 years. Every year we see more improvement, and kudos to the Nigerian government through the coordinating agency, which is the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons. Various persons have been brought into various ministries, departments, agencies, the academia, private sector have been brought into the space because we understand that migration is multifaceted. You need the contribution of everybody to make it work. It's not surprising that the Sustainable Development Goals is also hinged on, the migration governance also hinged on that, because we have it there that if migration is well managed across the world and across these countries, across the globe, at the national level, local level, and what have you, we would achieve the SDGs even before 2030, as anticipated. It provides for us various means in which we can manage migration. Migration cross-cut the SDGs with specific reference to 10.7, which talks about safe, orderly, and regular migration. So, despite these advancements in migration governance in Nigeria, there's a growing need for increased youth participation and engagement to ensure that it is inclusive and comprehensive. You know, one time somebody once said something to say that you can't shave our head in our absence. Migration is about youth. If youth are not migrating today, I don't think migration will be an issue. If you go online and Google migration from Nigeria, if you Google and check, just Google migration and go on the images, you will see what you are seeing there are pictures of youth migrating through any means. It's actually sad that when you go there to check, what you see are youths in their numbers going through the Sahara and Mediterranean Sea, by all means to Jaffa, the term we have already adopted in Nigeria. The other aspect of it, which are really applaudable, Nigerian youths doing so well abroad, Nigerian youths making impact abroad are not reflected there. That's a topic for another day. I think that will be a topic for migration and media discourse. But now, despite this advancement, despite the fact that youths are there, youths are making a difference, youths are migrating, we are still not involved in the processes. All of the contributions, all of the policies and frameworks are made for us and not with us. What that means is that the implication of that is that our lived experiences and realities are not reflected there. We are the ones migrating. We know why we are migrating. And we can also contribute. We're not saying that we're the only solution to these issues that we're facing. We're saying that we can be a part of the solution. You keep developing frameworks and policies for us and without us involved in it. So it's not a bottom-top approach. We just come and we meet these policies, and these policies deeply impact in our lives. The outcomes of these policies, I tell you, affects you the most. But then we just come and we see these policies that were done for us and not with us. The Nigerian National Migration Policy was just reviewed, and I can categorically say that youth were there, but not there as youth representatives. They were there as, should I say, symbols. The organizations were invited. Maybe their CEOs were not available to attend. Okay, you go and attend for me. What that means is that when those organizations go there, when those people go there, they do not go there to represent the interests of the youth this time. They are going there to represent their own organizations. And data shows that youth comprises the largest part of the population with 70% in Nigeria. This is the Nigeria data. We are about 160 million youths in Nigeria. And I think this data was from MBS like 2022, 3 years ago. So this would have increased or maybe decreased. And we are mostly affected by migration trends, just like I explained earlier. We have been actively involved in migration, whether through regular or irregular channels. And these movements are driven by a lot of factors, which are the push and pull dynamics. Now, we're also saying that this matters because youths are not to be seen on the margin of migration governance. If it's about us, then you should recognize youth as key stakeholders also. Youth engagement ensures that migration policies are inclusive, Nothing about us without us. SDG says, leave no one behind. Even the GCM talks about collaborative participation, partnership, bringing everybody on board to make sure that we solve these issues together. We are saying that youths are also drivers of innovation. This is why youth participation in migration governance also matters too. Recently, sometime this year, around April, yes, before the Rabat process meeting in Abuja, we had the opportunity to have a meeting with other African young change makers on migration and development. Surprisingly, African youth are doing a lot. Before that meeting, I did not even know that there are some Nigerian youths who are already engaging in various activities, even though that they are on the sideline, they are engaging in these activities, and they are not even sure on how to bring these activities on board to make sure that it is recognized under the Nigerian migration governance space. Because other people from other countries have been given the opportunity, we could see the tech-savvy innovations that they're already coming up with, innovative approaches. For instance, using Ghana, our neighbors, Gambia, Tunisia, they have tech innovations that they have brought on board to make migration governance in their countries seamless, effective. We're saying that when youth are involved in migration governance, it can lead to a safer and more accessible migration pathways. We can advocate for policies. We can protect young migrants from risks associated. It is us that are doing this migration. When we come in, we're able to talk to ourselves. We know the language, we understand better. It is us that are being trafficked. It is us that are being exploited. When we come in, we're able to create a safer and more accessible pathways. Now, youth participation in migration governance means when we say we want to participate in migration governance, really, what do we really talk about? We're saying that it means ensuring that young people are meaningfully involved in shaping the policies, processes, and decisions that affect us at all levels, the local, the national, the regional, and the global. Beyond having us in the room, we're also saying that when you involve us, when we participate effectively in these migration governance processes, give us a seat at the table. The seat you are giving us is not just because you want us to be there. When we give our contributions, let the contributions not just be noted, but also influence the outcomes of those engagements. Nigeria has an amazing migration governance architecture, amazing. We are managing migration well, we're trying the best we can, but let's try as much as possible to also bring those who are mostly affected to the table. Come and hear from our lived experiences. You know, in 2021, the year after the COVID lockdown, that was the first time the Civil Society Network on Migration had the Civil Society Forum on Migration and Development. And I would boldly say that that network is a network that's the friend of the youth. The very first meeting, they made a young person the chairperson of that particular event. It was so sad. That was me at that time. So I made reference to the fact that it sounds so unfair that whenever migration and youth comes on board, whenever you want to talk about migration and youth, it's only when you're talking about irregular migration. And that's actually giving us a negative picture out there. I just saw again on the news this morning before I joined, I saw that apart from the announcement from the US, yes, that's like a doctrine of reciprocity, so we're not going there. Just this morning, I saw that the UAE has also imposed street visa restrictions again for Nigeria. Nigerians between the ages of 18 and 45. So if you check closely, the youth falls so much because the youth, let's say the category of youths are between 15 and 35, and now they have posed more stricter visa restrictions for 18 and 45. These are some of the negative impacts of these pictures we're projecting out there. When you talk about Nigerians and youth, why do you always talk about the negative aspects where there are other positive ones that you want to project? If we come on board, we're saying that we try to shift the narrative, which is actually false, because we are doing so well, we don't get to hear the positive sides. We ensure that the efforts of young people are recognized, supported, and meaningfully integrated into formal governance structures. Help us to come up with innovative ideas, help us to lead and design our own projects and campaigns. Help us to come up with innovative solutions. Give us the opportunity to bring up the solutions that address migration challenges. We're saying also that youth participation in migration governance means meaningful participation beyond being heard, but having policy influence. It's actually a good step that we're beginning to see young faces now. But another thing is that when these young faces come, They come and they just sit. That means that there are gaps that exist. You could invite us to meetings, but if you do not put the processes in place, the platforms in place to ensure that we have the capacity to deliver, then apart from the fact that it's a good step they're inviting us, then there will also be barriers and also be so many challenges limiting our effective participation. These gaps and challenges that I'm projecting now actually was gotten from the first Nigerian Youth Migration Forum in 2024, that was last year. Migration Movements with Me organized a youth migration forum. We brought together young change makers within the Nigeria migration governance space to talk about the challenges that are limiting our involvement. We are here, we have the capacity, we want to contribute, but so many things are limiting us. Come together, let's talk about these things and know what the challenges are. So we can use this as advocacy to talk to the government, to talk to stakeholders, to make sure that we are also involved in these processes. And so many challenges came up, and a few of them are projected here now. The first was lack of awareness. During that meeting, we discussed and we agreed that many youths are not aware of the existing frameworks and structures designed to govern migration in Nigeria. In fact, you know that youths are so quick to blame me, the government of Nigeria, the government of Nigeria. So many youths do not know the agencies or the MDAs that are in charge of managing migration in Nigeria. Even when some know, apathy and disinterest, they are not interested because most youth have given up on the system to say, just let them go. It's about them. They do these things by themselves. They don't involve us. So let them go and do what they want to do. Systemic barriers. The structures do not give opportunity for youth to come in. Insufficient funding. Youth have innovative ideas, but they don't have the funds to implement these ideas that they have. Limited opportunities for engagement is also a gap and challenge that was identified during that meeting. And we said that there are a few platforms of opportunities for youth to actively contribute to policy discussions of awareness, where even when they are aware of these structures that exist, there's also apathy and disinterest. Some persons are like, let's just leave them to organize these things themselves. It's their thing, they do these things by themselves, they don't want to involve us. We also have systemic barriers. The system do not really provide the opportunity for youth to be involved. Then we also have insufficient funding. When youth have ideas, they have initiatives, they don't get the necessary funds to implement these activities. I remember the two activities that were implemented by my organization. The very first one, it was self-funded by the organization. The second one, we approached IOM and IOM graciously supported and gave us technical support. So there are so many other initiatives. Many youth may not have the resources to implement these things themselves. And when they approach partners, when they approach the government, they are most likely declined to say this does not fall within our programs, this does not fall within our planned activities for the year. So that means youth are not even given a space when you are planning your budget from the beginning of the year. Is that what it may mean? They also have limited opportunities for engagement. There are a few platforms or opportunities for youth to actively contribute to these processes. Then lack of monitoring and evaluation, deficiency in evaluating these youth-focused programs. When these programs are even organized, I can tell you that it's only a few organizations that have programs that are meant to build the capacity of youth, give youth the space to contribute. Every other activity concerning youth, most times in Nigerian migration governance, is aimed at reducing irregular migration. We know that's like a key area, a critical area, because it's actually a dynamic and trend we're experiencing right now. But then there are other aspects to it. You can actually use this youth to solve these problems you are having. You can use this youth to come up with innovative ideas. We keep recycling the same kind of activities, the same kind of programs and initiatives. At some point, it loses value. At some point, it will not reach the intended outcome. We also have data gap. How many youth-led initiatives do we have? How are you encouraging the youth that are already in the picture, youth that are already creating an impact? Some other challenges include resource gatekeeping. Essential information needed to facilitate our engagement are often withheld. We do not have access to initiatives. Sometimes the locations for these events are not accessible to youth. You are holding a program for migration, youth have to be there. Most times, take it to where the protocol for entering and all of that is so tight, so strict that youth will not have access to it. Exclusion from implementation. Some youth have expressed eagerness to participate, but they are often excluded from implementation. Sometimes maybe due to favoritism. And what happens eventually is that these projects are poorly executed. Lack of youth ownership. Youths would come up with ideas. Youths will come up with initiatives. This is what we think should happen. At the end of the day, the project's implementation will be given to people who do not even have passion for the youth. People who never understand how those initiatives came to life. What happens again eventually? They are poorly executed. Timing conflicts. Many migration-related programs are scheduled at times that are inconvenient for young persons to attend this. Lack of passion and commitment can be also linked to the exclusion from implementation and the lack of youth ownership. These projects are entrusted to individuals who lack the experience or passion for the cause. And when this happens, the outcome of these programs are undermined and they are not effectively implemented. When you do not include youth in these structures, when you do not allow the voices of youth to be heard, there are missing links. The consequences of excluding youth is that you are disconnected. Your policies that you are coming up with are disconnected from reality. They fail to reflect the realities on ground. And what happens to those policies? They are policies that are almost adopted to fail. It may be implemented to an extent, but the crux of the matter, the main issues that ought to be tackled with, the main people that these outcomes are going to affect are not in the picture. Right from the point of formulating to the adoption, up to the implementation and the review, we do not bring these critical stakeholders on board. These are policies that are adopted to fail. When you do not involve young persons, I know we also see this also in the governance at large in Nigeria. We feel alienated from systems that are meant to protect us. We do not feel that we are among. Mistrust. When we see issues, critical issues on migration, we just swipe, go to the next station. When you go on TV and you see this, and you're like, what are they saying? Migration. I believe this people, Jerry. So lost innovation. Many youth have ideas that they want to bring on board. But these ideas would never see the light of the day because youth-driven solutions never reach the decision-making spaces. Wasted potential. These ideas are, I think there's one quote that talks about the fact that the graveyard or the burial ground has more dreams than, because so many dreams are lying down dead, and they never came to life. So wasted potential, innovative, bold youth ideas stay on here because the platform and opportunity was never given for us to show what we have to deliver. When we talk about reimagining migration governance, it's all about having a renewed mindset. It's all about having the renewal of the mind, shifting narratives, existing narratives, going beyond what you already know, exploring new horizons. Reimagining migration governance in Nigeria, the anticipated shift, we want to move from youth exclusion to youth integration in migration governance. We know that this is an architecture, the system is already there. It may not be easy to change, but let's start from somewhere. How do we start from somewhere? Beyond just inviting youth organizations that are youth led or youth focused, because most times these organizations go there to talk generally. Bring people who are ready to speak about the youth and speak for the youth on this decision making table. Using what we did as an example for the regional youth exchange, that meeting was organized because we understood as migration women made that the Rabat process meeting that was organized in Abuja was organized for youth. And you know how these high level dialogues are. Everybody cannot attend that meeting. Only a few we were opportune to attend such meetings. What did we do? A month before the meeting, we came together to say, okay, let's try to bring the youth together, get their ideas, get their initiatives. What do they want the African Union government and the EU government to hear on that day? We are going there, but we're not speaking on our own accord, but we're echoing the voices of other youths who are in the background to say this is the message from African youths. This is what we want the government of AU and the EU to do to help manage migration governance. So this is that. That was like a good way to show example also that when youth wants to be integrated, bring in people who are ready to echo the voices of others and not there for their own selfish interest or on their own accord. So, we want to move from youth exclusion to youth integration in migration governance. We want to shift from top-down policy to collaborative youth-informed decisions. When we still want to reimagine migration governance, we're talking about transitioning from policies that are reactionary. It has happened before we are reacting to it. Whereas there are things we can do to actually inform decisions. There are things we can do before it happens. So we're saying transitioning from policies that are reactionary to those that are proactive and future focused. When we say reimagine migration governance in Nigeria, we are saying we want to evolve from viewing youth as recipients to recognizing us as drivers of solutions. Um, do not just give us the fish every time. Whenever we're hungry, you give us the fish. Teach us how to fish so that we are able to contribute to this process. Because we know that we are key stakeholders in the entire migration governance process. When we reimagine migration governance, we summarize it with this slide. We say that don't think of us only when it has to do with irregular migration, return and integration, vulnerability. Think of us when it's time to bring in innovators, when it's time to bring in leaders, when it's time to bring drivers of change. Bring us in when you know that these activities you're implementing today needs to be inherited by another group that will sustain these activities you are doing now. If you do not bring in the youth at this time, the truth is at some point in the future, we will have to start all over again because these persons that you are removing now or they have not been streamed into the process, we have to learn from the scratch again. Bringing youth in at this critical stage is teaching them how to fish so that at that time, when it's time for us to inherit the process, it's easy, we just flow into it. So think of us as innovators, leaders, and drivers of change. And when you think of us as this, trust me, the narrative out there about the Nigerian youth will even change. It's so sad that when an average Nigerian youth goes to the embassy to apply for visa, that person is first seen as a prospective irregular migrant. It is difficult for a Nigerian youth to travel across the world because, especially to the EU region, they see you as somebody who has the potential to overstay. You are showing your proof of documents. You are showing that you have no reason to overstay. You are showing that I have a tie in my country. I have an amazing job that I don't want to. I'm coming back to it. Or they will ask you to send all the proof you have in this life before they will grant you a visa. And most times, those visas are even denied. So we're saying that the narrative has to be changed. But it has to be changed, it has to start from us first. Bring us on board, put us in a positive light. Let the rest of the world know that you have youth here that are innovative, youth that are leaders, and youth that are drivers of change. Well, for this meaningful youth engagement to come to life, for us to achieve this meaningful youth engagement, we need to have, I call them the core elements of meaningful youth participation. And I called it the triple O logic. I don't know where that came from, but anyway, the triple O logic. And it's ownership, opportunity, and openness. Ownership. As young persons, I'm sure there are some young people also on this call. We should not just relax. If you want to be a young change maker, if you want to be a leader, you want to really effectively engage, you should be willing to engage. You should be informed about the issues, read, carry out your surveys, be ready to contribute to the solutions. Sorry, don't just say that it does not concern me. It really concerns you. These policies they are making now will impact you whether or not you like it. Be willing to engage, take ownership of these activities. The second O is opportunity. The system must create a safe, accessible space for youth voices. We have to move beyond tokenism and ensure real seats at the table. It is time for us to move beyond just inviting us. When it's time for activities, you invite of recent, I've been seeing the National Youth Corps members attend meetings. Are we just sitting there or we are contributing to the processes and the processes are able to influence the outcomes of those decisions that are made there? We're also saying that the system must remove barriers to meaningful participation. The third O is openness. Migration governance in Nigeria must be open to youth as partners, not passive participants. See us as fellow stakeholders. See us as key stakeholders, not beneficiaries only. I think at this point, we're tired of being beneficiaries. Embrace youth insight as essential to effective policy. When we come with our ideas, give us the opportunity to pitch these ideas to you. Try them and see that it will work. Just give us the opportunity to know that, okay, there was a time that we were given the opportunity and we did X, Y, Z, and this was the impact of what we did. Create space for real youth contributions to shape decisions and actions. As we prepare to round up, we talk about pathways to meaningful youth participation in migration governance. We are saying institutionalize it, mainstream youth voices, create platforms, create permanent youth representation within migration governance structures. Let it be that when you go for these technical working group meetings, when you go for events, when you go for the national migration dialogue, there should be youth voices that are echoing the mind of other youth out there. Build our capacities and leadership development. When we come there, we should be able to understand migration is very complex, really, really complex. You need a build capacity to be able to contribute it. After mainstreaming us into the process, giving us a space within your structure, equip us to effectively engage in these policy spaces. Youth-led research and evidence. This came up here because I know that we have so many people from the academic space here. Invest in data generated by youth also to shape relevant policies. Create an opportunity for us to carry out youth-driven researches. And when it comes in, let the outcome of those researches drive your policies and programs as the government of Nigeria. Inclusive dialogue platforms. Ensure that the spaces are accessible for youth to engage, to dialogue. Support youth-driven solutions, fund and scale our activities. Support us. It must not be financial resources. You can give us technical support. You can mentor us. Help us to also address these migration challenges as they come up. So this next slide just shows the pictures of some of the activities that we have carried out as youth in Nigeria. First, the National Youth Migration Forum, which held in November 2024, and also the Regional Youth Exchange, which held this year, April 30th, 2025. These meetings, the Ministry of Youth was here, the representative from the Speaker of the National Assembly, the youth representative, the Special Assistant on Youth, Special Advisor on Youth was here also. We had young change makers from legal side, from health, from data, from accounting, young change makers who are making impacts. We were all in this engagement and they contributed effectively. The report of this engagement is on our website. You can go to migrationmovementsmade.org to see the reports from these engagements. Now, after all of this we have been talking about for this minute, for this long time, before we return back to our various jobs and before we go back to our various activities for today and contribute to this discourse we have been having since morning, we are saying that youth participation is not optional, it is essential. Stop seeing us as the problem. See us as the missing solution. We have been trying so hard for years. Why not try to bring in youth this time to see how well we are able to come up with ideas to close these gaps that are existing? The future is youth-powered. Sustainable migration governance starts with engaging those who will inherit its outcomes. If migration is mostly about us, if you can't talk about migration without talking about youth involvement, why not bring us into the picture to contribute to this process? For the government, we're saying open the space to involve youth participation in migration governance. The academia inform the space, carry out researches on migration and youth involvement. Include migration and youth in your curricula. Carry out activities that will bring in policymakers and youth. Thank God that most people in schools, in the higher institutions, are young persons, are youth. Create an opportunity for them to engage with young policymakers also in your institutions. Institutions, after the space has been opened, try to sustain the space. International partners continue to support and amplify the space because we need your support. Without you, there's little or nothing we can do. Young people own the space. Migration is mostly about you being involved in these processes. The government, the academia, the institutions, the international partners will not come to your homes to pull you out to get involved in this space. When you show your interest, you show what you're capable of doing, show that you're capable of owning the space. Sometimes we need to do so much for the system to trust us enough to hand these things over to us. So we're saying also own the space. In concluding, I would say that the future of migration governance will be judged by how well it listens to, invests in youths, and also work with this population who are the most mobile demographic in Nigeria and the world at large. And we're saying not tomorrow, but today. Thank you very much for listening. Now is the time. If you have any question or contribution, please feel free to do that now. Thank you so much.
I started clapping for Mary. That was very insightful. Thank you so much for this presentation. I must confess, I enjoyed every bit of it. And, you said nothing about us without us. That is very fundamental, a fundamental truth. I agree absolutely that you need to be actively involved in the migration space. And thank God for people like you who are already, despite all odds, already part of it. And that, I would say, should be a focus and a concern for other users. They can also come up despite all odds. Yes, the stumbling blocks may be there, the challenges are there, but you still came out and here you are taking it on yourself how to address your co-youths. So it's very, very good to hear from a youth like you how much you have been able to do in the migration space. You have decided to have a meaningful participation and you challenge yourself. So all the wonders you seek are within you. That is my own. You have to still make yourself relevant. Yes, the system will help, but you have decided to come up to make yourself relevant. And I also appreciate the echoing the voices of other youth, because that's what you are actually doing by being on this platform. I really thank God that I invited you to the platform, because I wish youths were here to listen to you, but I can't see them. And on our own part, most of our lecturers are there at the exam field. That's why many people from the university may not be here. But I was expecting youths, for you to be able to tell them to come and listen to your co-youth. I want to talk about us. But I don't know, you may have your reasons, but they are not here. This is very scanty, and many people will need to hear more from you. However, because this will be placed on YouTube, invariably you get the link and you let your co-youth listen to what you have said about the youth. Because, like you said, see us as the missing solution. And I think these are some words that must be pondered on. We should see you as a missing solution. And I like your slide 16, where you were showing government open the space, academia inform the space. I really like that part. So by and large, I think you have really done a beautiful presentation, but the publicity of this presentation should now be our concern. So let me give the space to other colleagues and senior colleagues online to make contribution or ask questions. Like I said before, just note them down and then you take them holistically. Now, I think I saw Emeritus Professor. Let me allow you. After that, Professor Akinwale. After that is Silver John. Let's take it in that order. Okay, sir. Emeritus Professor Sogolo, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to join you in congratulating the barrister for this very clear and brilliant presentation. The entire presentation is advocacy. Quite all right. That's what I can see in it. Talks about the notion of migration governance, and then youth, particularly. But there is a point that is very important, which it runs through the entire presentation. It is the relationship between youth governance and the larger governance system. And if you look at the challenges that are listed by the presenter, most of them have to do with those challenges, how the youths ought to be brought in, but they are not. And of course, they are not, because there are issues that are involved. The most important one, which he emphasized, is distrust. All right, and that is very important. See, when there is distrust between the larger governance system and the youth who want to be involved, all right, in governance themselves, in issues of governance, then that becomes a larger problem. And of course, you see, you are talking in the context of a large number of the youths. It talks about as many as 70% who are youth, going by the definition of the youth being between, but I'm surprised to see talking about 35 as being youth, but they're all right. We have the politicians who are 60 and who claim to be youth. So that's all right. But that is not always definite. That range changes, but that's just by the way. What I'm saying is that the issue of distrust is there. And if a large number of our youth are so eager to migrate, okay, it is difficult to hand over the governance of that system to the same people who want to migrate. And that explains why when our youth go to the embassy, applying for a visa, the first difficulty they face is distrust. If I go for a visa, for instance, there might be some element of distrust, but it's not likely to be as much as any youth. All right? But because they will just say, oh, what does this old man want to go and do there? He's probably not really interested in going there to settle and so forth. But most of the youth are. And that element of distrust is very important. That I just want to make that point. The issue I really want to advise the presenter on is that, you see, in our own tradition, the academic profession, is that we advocate, but we try to back our advocacy with some research and some data, some figures, and so forth. So we would have wanted to know, for instance, if the presenter had tried to get some figures of, the youth who are really involved in migration governance, but are not interested in migrating, compared to those who go in and take advantage, all right, of the system. And when they have traveled, they lose interest in whatever migration is and so forth. So we sometimes need those figures, those data to back our advocacy. So the advocacy all through is about youth involvement, which is very good. But then you must know the element to which, when you make it this advocacy, what is the situation really? And that's very important. And that you get by research, by getting figures, by getting people to speak, the values that people hold. Why do Nigerians want to migrate? You speak to those who are eager to migrate and so forth. And then, of course, you tie that to the challenges, the issues at home. And that becomes very clear why our youth are growing up and getting this orientation. Thank you very much. It's a brilliant presentation.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful addition. I agree with you absolutely, sir, that we need to look at why do Nigerians want to migrate, and youths are part of Nigerians. So they are not another class of Nigerians, they are all Nigerians. So the same thing that is affecting the adults is affecting the youth. But why the youths are more, I think Mary will tell us very soon. So over to you, Professor Akinwale.
Okay, thank you very much. I salute I salute Emeritus Professor Godwin Sogolo. Good afternoon,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon.
You're welcome,
Yes.
sir. And I greet all members in the house. Good afternoon. I miss Abuja. So I was in Abuja a couple of months ago during my sabbatical at the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. And Mary Osato, I was privileged to listen to your presentation during our international conference. And that was a brilliant coordination. Thank you once again. So this afternoon, it is nice to hear your voice again. And the subject matter of your presentation is very apt. It's very important. It's very topical. And like Emeritus Professor Sogolo said, this is an advocacy, and it is important, it is significant, because this kind of advocacy is needed in order to assist and in order to deliver solution to the issue of youth exclusion. And you made it clear in your presentation. You emphasize the fact that the narrative must change, and as a result of that, you are making an intervention. So, and like Emeritus Godwin Sogolo said, your advocacy will benefit. Your advocacy will be more effective if it benefits from scientific approach. And I think that's part of what Emeritus Professor Sogolo advised, that you should make the argument evidence-based. You should make the argument evidence-based, so that will make it more effective. It will make it more acceptable. And what Emeritus Professor Sogolo is advising you to do is to check again if possibly you have interacted with some youth and got their responses to some of these issues. So because the topic of your presentation appears like a qualitative advocacy, and that's quite good. And I want to also suggest a slight adjustment to the title to make it more clinical, to make it more accurate. So I want to recommend that, but before I recommend, I want to ask you a question. That's when you are responding. This migration governance you are interested in, are you limiting it to migration governance in Nigeria, or are you also willing to consider how migration governance is affecting Nigerians who have migrated? You know, we have a significant number of Nigerians in different parts of the world. They are in Asia, they are in Europe, they are in North America, and everywhere they go, they are also affected by migration governance. So it's important to clarify that, and that clarification is going to affect the way we are going to rephrase the title. So, and I'm going to suggest two titles. One will accommodate if your focus is limited to migration governance in Nigeria. The second modification will accommodate if you want to expand the migration governance beyond Nigeria. If you want it to have a global outlook. So if you want to limit it to Nigeria, I think you can rephrase it to reimagining youth participation in migration governance in Nigeria. Reimagining youth participation in migration governance in Nigeria. So that will capture the advocacy and your presentation, because you are concerned about the fact that youth are excluded and there is need for increase in the level of participation of youth in migration governance. So every story you want to tell can be captured under that. If you say reimagining youth participation, meaning the main problem is that youth participation has not received adequate attention, and you want to amplify that. So, but if you want to give the focus a global outlook, I think you can say reimagining Nigerian youth participation in migration governance. Reimagining Nigerian youth participation in migration governance. So if you say this, you can open it up to whether Nigerian youth in Nigeria or Nigerian youth outside Nigeria. So please take note of that. Then remember to consider the methodological implication, which Emeritus Professor Sogolo called your attention to. So it's important for you to provide some evidence. You know, maybe you can conduct a field interview or focus group among some of the youth within your space, so that you gauge their own opinion, and you can then, on the basis of that, you can make a kind of qualitative description of the narratives and concerns. And finally, I think there's things for balancing of the equation. There are also few instances of youth involvement, though you mentioned it briefly, but you tend to focus more on the problem of exclusion. So I'm aware that there is collaboration between the Ministry of Youth Development and IOM, and that collaboration is also trying to increase some of the issues you have raised. And also that collaboration is also trying to address that problem of exclusion. So you may also want to include that in your paper. If you want to send it to our center's journal for publication. So there are some instances, there are efforts, in that direction. There are efforts get towards promoting youth inclusion in migration governance. So we are not operating from ground zero. So there are some, milestones that have been covered. So I want to advise that you are a lawyer. I think you should balance that equation, so that you can tell us that, okay, maybe currently we're operating at the level of 15 degree. You need to, 15%, but we need to upgrade to maybe 70 or 80%. So on this note, I want to yield the floor for others. So I wish you all the best in your advocacy, and more power to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your contributions. Now, Silver John, I think you are the next, after which Dr. Jukonemu can come up. Can we hear from you,
Okay.
sir?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Ma, and the host of others. I want to appreciate Honorable Director. We once met, and I saw the zeal, the desire to see that the youth, especially these migrants, are empowered and find themselves do something. And also our able speaker, the person of Mary, and our beloved professor. Well, I want to appreciate every contribution that has been made. I want to focus on just a particular sector that the professor asked a question: why are we migrating? First, migration is in two ways: the local migration from the villages to the urban areas, and internationally. Now, I discovered that we've been dealing with people with our. We discovered that we've met talent, but they couldn't do much because of the kind of educational system we run. Actually, education is perfect. It's a foundation that everyone should build on. But I discovered that one of the things we lack, the kind of education we run is practically based on theory, not practical. We don't have the practical education. I can tell you, for instance, people who look at the recent thing that happened in JAM. Some people fail JAM because they've not have access to computer, honestly. That's why you see the mass failure. You can't take such programs to an interior village and you want them to know what to operate computer. Now, that is one. Then another area is infrastructure. Our youth are hardworking. They want to do something out of their life. They want to make something, but the infrastructure is not there. The infrastructure is not there. I can take myself an example. I have an online business which I established 2 years ago, but I have to, stop for a while because the first thing I did was to get money, go to the interior to get our raw material, raw food materials and all that. But guess what? My agent that went there, we were all massacred by this insurgency, the insecurity, and that money got missing. Now, lost like that. Now, what am I trying to say? We need to build over all our educational system, that we bring in talent, to groom talent, practically, not just theoretically. We need to balance that to have the equation. We are in a society where it is only certificate that matters, and that is not too good. Where if you don't have a certificate, you are not relevant. And that's why today every youth we want to find a way to get that certificate without going through the process in the school. That is what is happening right now. And that is weakening the impact of the youth in our society today. You see, if you can get it right here, that is what prompts this migration to other countries where all the facilities are there. To my surprise, people are even going to Ghana here. Ghana. And why are they going to Ghana? Their currency is higher than Nigeria own. It's like American to Ghana. Ghana is now like American to Nigeria. And when you visit Ghana, you see Nigerian youth using wheelbarrows to hawk accessories, which is terrible. We have youth that are intelligent. We have youth that can make things happen in Nigeria. But the atmosphere does not encourage. You go to our CAC, you have a lot of company registered, but they are dormant. They are not functional. They are not active. Because one, like our speaker said, no funding, no system of funding people with ideas, great ideas. And that is a problem. And with all this going on, you don't expect the youth to be in Nigeria and to remain there with all this problem. I will give you an instance before I stop. I'm sure all of us are aware of the first set of Chibok girls that were kidnapped. I think after some years, 2 of them traveled abroad, precisely America. And within the space of few years, you can see the difference between those children and those they left behind. You can see the great difference. What was the magic they used for them over there? We have all it takes to transform our youth. Because what we are doing right now is that, you go to school, get the certificate, look for a job. I was in the NYC camp. I asked a question. How many of you will either seek for a job or start a business? Almost 95% of the youth corpus went for seeking jobs. And we all know that the government can't provide jobs for everybody. We all know that. Now, if 90% of our graduates are looking for jobs, their mindset is just narrow to you've graduated, now that you've graduated, seek for jobs. Nobody is thinking of, I can create a job. Now, why? Because the kind of system we run is not encouraging at all. And our government needs to look at how to balance our education. People who can create, people who can invest, people who can turn their ideas to something that people will demand. And that is what drives other countries we are running to today. China, everybody wants to go to China because they've come to realize that you can only use what you have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silver John. I think you've made your point, and let's give others a chance to say something.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Jukonoemu, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me welcome Professor Tijani. He came late, unlike him, so I'm sure he has some other serious business, but I know he will say something here before we close. You are welcome on board.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. Lady Mary Sato, thank you. That's a good presentation, and that's a good one. In fact, when I started listening to your presentation, what crossed my mind, I was like, wow, this is a good youth crusade. We have somebody here that's advocating for the youth, a youth that is actually speaking out. Sorosoke, and you're doing that, and that's a good one. And you talked about how youth are not being engaged properly. But I want you to emphasize on an area to link it up with the system of governance. It is true that we have so many youths living en masse, leaving the country, migrating out of the country. But let's not look at the negative aspect of youth living, whether irregularly or irregular migration. You understand? Looking for ways to live. But let's emphasize and look at it based on the system of governance that is actually pushing them out. And you mentioned the push factor. So you need to sharpen that aspect of the push factor a little based on governance. And in bringing out the engagement focus, you now engage in such a way that if youth are actually engaged in this policy making, in the system of governance, it will reduce the number of youth going out because they'll be able to speak out. And it's possible when we have a huge number of youth engaged in governance, engaged at different levels, the system will be different because they will speak for themselves. As I always say, that politics and governance, politics is that people in authority take decisions in their favor. So if you have the opportunity to be able to speak out, decisions that will be taken will be in the favors of youth, and that way we're engaging the youth. Then we have less number of youth migrating, so the push factor will be reduced. So you need to sharpen that aspect of the system, actually pushing these youth out, and then the engagement, we're actually pushing it, and then we have less youth living. So there's a need to do that. And then the suspicious area where when youths apply and they are being suspected as if they are not coming back. To tell you the truth, just as Prof have said, if you actually look at figures, you find out that so many of them disguise use education and different means with the intention of not coming back based on record, and that is why anytime Nigerian youth are applying for visa, they claim to either go for health or go for education or something, they interrogate it, they begin to investigate over and over again because of past history. So if you look at record, you see that a lot of them have defaulted one way or the other. So they are beginning to try to bring policies that will cushion that will stop people from doing that. So you need to emphasize on that too. But even at that, there are still some that want to stay. I was pushed out. The last person that spoke said something about being frustrated. He said there are certain things you're trying to do, and because of the system, you're not able to do that. That is true, quite all right. And we still need to emphasize that aspect. What are those things that are actually making these youth to leave? What are those things that are forcing them to what I call irregular migration, for instance? I say they're making them to take deceptive self-development venture. They pretend to want to develop themselves in a deceptive way in the aim to get out of the country. But what is pushing them out of the country? And you're trying to say, if the system is okay, the youth will not want to leave. And I want to agree with you on that. If everything is in place, the system is okay. I don't see so many people running out of the country. Why? They won't want to do that. But if youths are looking at the future, it's like they are beginning to feel that there's really nothing here for them. That is why. So you need to sharpen this aspect of your paper and bring them out. Thank you. But that was a wonderful presentation. I'm sure the youths are very proud of you now, so I'm telling you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ejukunemu, for your contribution. I can't see any hand up right now. Okay, everybody thumbs up and all that. I don't know whether there's any other person who wants to speak, but meanwhile, let us allow the presenter to. Please, let's have the presenter respond to issues raised so far. Maybe by then, by the end of that, more people will signify.
Thank you very much, Prof, and to everyone who has contributed. In fact, when I was told that I was going to do this and for the center, I knew that I was going to be meeting professors and doctors, and I knew it would be an opportunity to learn, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. All right, so just to respond to some of the issues raised, I am from a civil society background, and as a civil society person, we try as much as possible not to dissuade or not to discourage migration because we know that migration is a fundamental human right. What we say as civil society is that we should ensure that if you must migrate, it must be done in safety, in dignity, and in a humane way. Safe, orderly, and regular migration is what we advocate for. We do not say do not leave because it is a fundamental human right under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We do not intend to violate that right. But if you must go, countries are sovereign nations, they have their rules and regulations in which you can come in, on which you can go at. So that being said, we're not trying to say do not migrate, but for saying if you migrate, you must migrate, do it the right way. And I'm happy that I have had the opportunity now to understand migration in another way from the perspective of the academia today. So we're also saying that if they are afraid to give us the opportunity to lead these processes, then we'll be making another mistake there because the solution is not to hold us back because you are afraid you would lose us. So I wrote here that they should be able to build a system that gives us a voice. You are not trying to hold us back because you are afraid of losing us. Let us have an opportunity to also contribute to this process. If we choose to migrate, then it's fine. It's a fundamental human right to do so. For instance, I'm not currently in Nigeria at the moment, but yeah, I am also contributing to the process happening in Nigeria. There are so many other Nigerian diaspora youths who have left, but they are still contributing to these processes from afar. Even though I'm returning, I'm not staying here, I'm just visiting, but they are real Nigerian youth migrants who are away, but they are still contributing to the processes. Nigerian migration governance has various aspects, including the diaspora part, thematic focus on diaspora, and there are youths from that aspect who are contributing also. And I agree with the person that said that we're not starting from square zero. The baseline is not zero because other things have been done, other MDAs, the Ministry of Youth, IOM, even the European Union. I will agree with you because recently I saw a call by IOM. It was sent out for youth between the ages of 18 and 30 to submit application to be in the IOM Youth Advisory Board. Then EU has an EU Youth Sounding Board, and there's a migration aspect of that EU's Youth Sounding Board. So these are international partners that now understand the importance of having youth voices in their discussions on the table. So they have been able to do that. So they have planted seeds that Nigerian government also replicate, also imitate to. They have planted the seeds. It's now time for Nigerian government to nurture and water this garden of the seeds that they have planted. So somebody said youth migrate. Yes, youth migrate. Honestly speaking, before the first time I had the opportunity to leave Nigeria, I was hinged on, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay in Nigeria. I'll stay here. But after the first time I left and I saw that there are systems in places, in other places that actually work. There are systems that work in other places. I just said, for my PhD, I'll try to do my PhD somewhere outside, see, really experience this, and come back home to contribute. There are so many push factors. Push factors are enormous. All the times I've gone to the airport to welcome and receive returning migrants that have been deported, their complaint is still the same thing. Ma, the thing will make me come up for Nigeria. The reason I left Nigeria have multiplied. It have increased. I can't stay here. At the airport, they are even telling that they cannot stay here. So the push factors are many. They are no better. The environment is not enabling. You go out there, you can get jobs, no matter how little that job is. And the economic situation also, you earn so little here. In the eyes of them, is little. When they bring it back home, it's so much money. When they convert it to the Naira, there's so much they can do. And there's also the social and peer pressure too. I will also tell you that that's also a fact from our own end too. We may also face pressure and then we want to go because others have gone, not even knowing where we are going. That's also another situation with us too at is. Then, yes, I know that it's a very valid point that advocacy grounded on research has greater influence. Otherwise, what we're saying is just baseless. And I'm already working towards that. In fact, my master's thesis is on that, youth participation in migration governance. And so before the paper was submitted for the journal, for the center, all of those findings from that research that can also be let out to be added to the paper for a richer documentation. Then, okay, I think that's basically all that I put down. Yes. My advocacy will be more beneficial if it's from the space of research. Yes, like I just mentioned, that is already in place for my master's thesis. But there are some aspects of it, because I've not defended yet, there's some aspects of it that I will definitely contribute to the paper before it's submitted to the center for its journal. And emphasis on the fact that migration is a fundamental human right. We cannot stop people from migrating. If we don't want them to migrate, then there should be an enabling environment that will want to make us stay, because the pull factors from these countries we are running to are enormous, and it keeps drawing us. That's why people would risk their lives to go through those hazardous places to get to the other side of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mary, for your response. Okay, I have seen Professor Monioluwa Olaniyi. You are welcome, ma. And I can see Professor Ndukaeze Nwabweze. This place, Mary is attracting so many professors today. You are all welcome, and I hope you will say one or two things to make this presentation more robust. Let me ask Professor Tijani, with his hand raised now, to please make his contribution.
Good morning, everyone, and I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I would like to thank Barrister Mary Osato for the advocacy paper. I was not able to listen in when you presented, but that is what listening is good for. You learn from others' contributions, and you try to make a sense of what exactly is going on. I've had advocacy, I've had youth, I've heard about governance, etc., etc. Those are the key words. And permit me, if my questions are already answered, but I think it's something that you probably want to look into. The first question the day I received this flyer was, what exactly is migration governance? I don't know whether you define that. I don't know whether you contextualize it. I do not know whether there is a concept or the reality beyond the theory or the concept of migration governance. And then, of course, with a preface about youth being in the loop, not outside the loop. So, and I think perhaps specific narratives would germane to bring home your contextualization, okay? Talking about the reality. I've heard people talking about the fact that, mostly youth will go to the embassy and then they look at you and say, I don't think you're coming back. It's a reality. Even elderly people will go and they will tell him or her, oh, I don't think you're coming back. It is an internal behind the scene measure that I will not speak about because I'm really fully engaged when it comes to you know global partnerships, given the substantive position I have been in charge of in the last 5 years, and engaging the embassy. The truth is that some of our people, if you now come back home, Nigeria, because you cannot advocate for the whole of the continent, you have to be more specific for you to really win hearts and minds. So I will suggest that your advocacy, if that is an advocacy paper or if a reflective essay rooted in ethnographic methodology with specific narratives, then you zero in on Nigeria, okay, as a Nigerian, or you zero in on Ghana as a Ghanaian. Oh, by the way, the person that spoke about Ghana, Nigerians now going to Ghana, it's not new. Migration is not new. Going to Ghana is not new. My maternal grandpa had properties in the 50s, in the 40s, 50s, in Ghana. Okay, they came back as a result of, Nigerians must go, just as we did for them in the 70s, early 70s or thereabout, or I think it's 80s, excuse me. So, but migration will continue to be an important aspect of our lives, and that is what gave back to this center in terms of the multidisciplinary nature of migration. Today we have a lawyer presenting. In the past, we have public health people. Even the director was convinced. Even the former DVC and those in the sciences, they were convinced that it is not about the humanities. It is multidisciplinary, and you can see it. So your paper is quite relevant, very, very relevant. I will also round up by telling you that just last month, exactly almost about last month, there was at least four roundtable devoted to this issue. Serious roundtable, global, at the University of Lagos by the Lagos Studies Association that I will encourage you to join, about Jakpa, Jakpada, Jalo, all those concepts, because pretty much that is what you are looking into. And I will link you. You can link up with me. I'll link you with some of the people that organize that so that the conversation can continue, the collaboration can continue. Lastly, when you talk about youth migration governance, are you talking about evidence of exclusivity, inclusivity, and or marginalization? Are they being excluded? Are they being... So you must come to the table, as others have spoken, with data beyond advocacy. Advocacy will not make any sense, okay, without data to back it up. And that is why you have to marry the two together, okay? And I wish you all the best in that exercise. I think I will stop for now, and then we can continue the conversation. Thank you very much, Professor Aneto,
Thank you
for
very
all
much
that
for
you're
your
doing and for allowing
contribution.
me to speak. Of course, I was on another meeting is as important as this. And I thank to Professor Akinwale for sending me a note to say, oh, it is ongoing. I really thank you.
Thank you
Everyone,
so
I thank you
much.
for allowing us to benefit from your knowledge. Thank
Thank
you
you for
very
your
much. Bye-bye.
contribution. Thank you. I cannot see any other hand up for now. I don't know. Professor Monioluwa, you also came in late, but do you have anything to add to this gist?
Thank you very much, Ma. Actually, I want to first thank you for the recognition. I really came in at the time Professor Emeritus Sugulu was talking, so I didn't actually meet the lecture, but I want to salute
Okay, we
Professor
didn't
Emeritus
notice your name.
Sugulu for always being available and for his contributions at all times, not only in the center's activities, but the university's activities in general. And he's giving us reasons why we must also continuously mentor others.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And you see his level of commitment. Prof is en route and he still has to connect to this work. Thank you, sir.
It's always there
Yeah,
for us.
thank you.
Yeah.
I would have loved
Again,
to listen to the speaker, but I'm sure that we will receive the video recording. I was actually attending
oh,
to
let us drop
an
in.
ongoing research and putting
Let
my
us
team
drop in.
through.
Yeah.
By the time I came back to the office from the lab, I realized that, it was I almost did not connect, but I said all the same, I will still meet the interactive session.
Thank you
So
so much for being there.
I want to join others to congratulate the lecturer, and because her work has been well commended, I want to congratulate her and also congratulate the center for consistently ensuring that we have reasons to interact and to discuss, to exercise our brains, and to also learn from others. On this note, I want to thank you again for giving me the floor. I
Thank
thank
you
also
so much,
Professor Tijani too for coming in.
Thank you so much. Professor Ndukaize Nwabueze, we've not seen you for a long time, and it's nice to see that you are there. Do you want to say something, sir? Let's ask the speaker. Maybe she has a comment for the last contribution, and then we try to wind up. Over to you, Be.
All right. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, professors. It's an honor to be here again. So just to respond to Professor Tijani, he did mention that he wasn't here during the lecture and he wanted to know if we already discussed about migration governance. Yes, Professor, we did have a slide that talked about migration governance. And so to contextualize this in our Nigerian context, so very first thing, migration governance refers to the set of rules, the policies, institutions, everything we do as migration governance stakeholders to ensure that migration is well governed, that migration is done in a safe, orderly, and responsible manner. So everything we do falls under the definition of migration governance. So in our Nigerian context, if we want to break it down, when we talk about migration governance in terms of the policies, we're talking about the existing policies, the National Migration Policy, the National Policy on Labor Migration for Diaspora, Border Management, as well as the NAPTIP Act and other frameworks that we have within Nigeria. In terms of the processes, we talk about the return and integration aspect, the border management, all what the immigration does to secure and ensure that those that come into Nigeria are those that should come in, those that go out are those that have the valid documentation to go out. Then we also talk about balancing national interests with migrants' rights and human dignity. This also falls under migration governance in our context as Nigerian governance structure of migration. It also entails ensuring that at the regional, sub-regional, and international level, we continue to cooperate and collaborate with one another to ensure that migration is done for the benefit of everyone. Then it also means engaging different levels of government, whether from the national, the state level, and the local level. So everything we do to ensure that migration is safe, dignified, and done in a humane way, without the violation of rights also too, falls under the context of migration governance. And once again, I think we're rounding up. As round up, I want to say a very big thank you for this opportunity to do this. This is the first time I'll be presenting in front of these smart professors. Yes, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I must say, this is the first time we're also inviting a youth on this platform. So at least you are the first youth, and thereafter we hope to see more youths on our platform presenting to us. Thank you so much for your presentation, and we hope if we invite you the next time again, you'll be there. We are delighted to have you, and thanks for your contribution. And I want to use this opportunity.
She's not the first youth to.
I was
Sarah
going to say
was a
that
youth
too.
too.
Okay, the one from UK. Yeah, you are right. It's the second one. You are the second youth. Thank you all for your contributions. Because if you are not there, we won't have this and it will not be meaningful. So we always encourage you to continue to come to support us. We thank you. Anytime we invite, we see people to come around. We really appreciate your presence and your contributions. And on this note, I want to say bye-bye to everyone.
Before you bye-bye us, we're expecting the roundtable as discussed during the last.
Yes, that will be put together. That will come next.
Please put it together.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.